They were supposed to be the stars who would lead their teams to glory, the faces of their franchises, and the ones who would elevate their organizations to new heights. Instead, they've become the anchors, massive contracts dragging their teams to the bottom of the standings. Injuries, underperformance, and financial mismanagement have turned these players into some of the worst contracts in NBA history. These deals have crippled teams' salary caps and clouded their futures, leaving franchises locked into long-term commitments with little to show for it. But what's worse is that these are not just bad contracts, they are a blueprint for what not to do in the modern NBA. From players who were once elite but are now shadows of themselves, to role players who were overhyped and overpaid. The story of these contracts is one of miscalculations, regret, and the harsh reality of how quickly a team's plans can fall apart. Today, we're diving deep into the worst contracts in the NBA right now, contracts that are threatening to destroy the futures of their teams and players who, for one reason or another, are no longer worth the price tag they carry. Let's start with Joel Embiid and Paul George, two of the most recognizable names in the NBA, but also two players whose contracts are weighing heavily on their teams.
Comes to Joel, Nurkic on him, 5 seconds to go.
There you go.
Embiid driving, spinning, fading, hitting!
For Joel Embiid, it's heartbreaking to watch. A former 2023 MVP, Embiid was supposed to be the cornerstone of the Philadelphia 76ers, but the injuries started piling up, and his body simply couldn't keep up with the demands of the game. Knee issues, which have plagued him for years, robbed him of his explosive leaping ability and lateral quickness. In the 2025 season, Embiid played just 19 games, and each time he stepped on the floor, it was clear he wasn't the dominant force he once was. He was sluggish, slower to react, and unable to finish plays with the same ferocity that made him one of the most dominant big men in the league. Despite still being effective as a mid-range scorer, Embiid's defense deteriorated drastically. Teams targeted him in the pick and roll, exploiting his inability to move laterally. And despite the $193 million extension he signed in the 2024 offseason, keeping him in Philly until 2029, his future is uncertain at best. With $67 million waiting for him in 2029, it's hard to imagine Embiid returning to his MVP-level form, especially when his knees seem to be deteriorating with every passing year. The Sixers are now locked into this massive deal with a player whose health is in constant question. At this stage, it would be a miracle for Embiid to ever be the player he once was. But Embiid's struggles are compounded by another disastrous contract in Philadelphia, Paul George. The 35-year-old star has been plagued by a combination of groin injuries and knee problems in 2025. Once a feared perimeter defender and elite scorer, George's decline has been swift. His once dominant defense has all but disappeared, and his offensive game has also taken a hit, with his averages dropping to just 16 points on 43% shooting. George's $49 million salary in 2025 is hard to justify when he's no longer the player he was just a few seasons ago. To make matters worse, his contract runs until 2028, and at that point, the Sixers will be paying him top dollar for a player whose body is betraying him. But the Sixers are not alone in their struggle with big contracts.
So quickly, weaving around the Drummond screen, George fires on a three and drains it.
Let's look at the Phoenix Suns, who went all in on a star-studded roster, but have found themselves in a financial quagmire. After an impressive run to the 2021 NBA Finals and a franchise record 64 wins in 2022, the Suns decided they needed more star power to put them over the top. So, they traded for Kevin Durant, giving up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 first-round picks. It was a deal that made sense on paper. Durant is one of the best players in NBA history, but the Suns didn't stop there. They then turned their attention to Bradley Beal, who was acquired in a trade that sent Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, 4 first-round picks, and 6 second-round picks to Washington. Beal's arrival was supposed to make Phoenix a super team, but it quickly became apparent that the trio of Durant, Beal, and Devin Booker couldn't find the right balance. Despite their offensive firepower, the Suns struggled to get things going, finishing the 2024 season with just the 10th best offensive rating in the league. Defensively, they regressed from the 3rd best defense in 2022 to 13th in 2024, and when they faced the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round of the playoffs, they were completely exposed. The Timberwolves swept the Suns, allowing over 120 points in 3 of the 4 games. The worst part? Bradley Beal's contract. Beal, now 32, has always been a great scorer, but his defense is lacking and his offensive numbers have started to dip. In 2025, Beal didn't even average 20 points per game. Yet, he's set to make $50 million in 2025, and the Suns are stuck with him due to his no-trade clause, which gives him the power to veto veto any trade. This means Phoenix can't even unload his contract to free up cap space. With the Suns struggling to find any rhythm and Beal's deal weighing them down, the franchise is in a dire position, and the road to rebuilding is already paved. While Phoenix is stuck in the quicksand of bad contracts, the Minnesota Timberwolves made one of the most questionable trades in NBA history when they acquired Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz. To land Gobert, the Timberwolves gave up 5 players, 4 first-round picks, and a pick swap. While Gobert is one of the best defensive players in the league, the trade was always a head-scratcher. In today's NBA, where three-point shooting and offensive firepower are paramount, trading away a king's ransom for a player who specializes in defense seems misguided, and Gobert's $43 million contract has made it impossible for the Timberwolves to build a competitive team. What's even worse is that the Timberwolves also traded Jared Vanderbilt, who's a better perimeter defender than Gobert, and Walker Kessler, a phenomenal rim protector who's been far more effective than Gobert in recent years. Minnesota didn't need Gobert as much as they needed offensive weapons and perimeter defense, and now they've locked themselves into a deal that will haunt them for years. And just to make matters worse, the Timberwolves gave Gobert 3 more years and $110 million, a deal that ensures they'll be paying top dollar for a player who doesn't fit the modern NBA. And then we have Kawhi Leonard, a player whose greatness is undeniable when he's healthy, but the key word here is healthy. Since joining the Los Angeles Clippers, Leonard has played in just 56% of games. His injury woes have kept him sidelined for most of the Clippers' playoff runs, and now, once again, he's expected to miss the start of the 2026 season with another indefinite injury. Despite his immense talent, Leonard's injuries have kept him from being a reliable postseason contributor, and the $49 million he's set to earn in 2025 seems like an astronomical amount for a player who can't stay on the floor. Leonard's per-game salary of $730,000 has led many to question if the Clippers are getting enough value for their investment. The team is stuck with a superstar who can't stay healthy, and with a $50 million salary for the next 2 years, they'll have to find a way to make the most of this contract or risk heading into a long rebuild. But it's not just the superstars who are causing trouble for their teams. Let's talk about Patrick Williams from the Chicago Bulls, a role player who was once considered a future star but has failed to live up to expectations. Standing at 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan, Williams has the physical tools to be a great player. The problem is, he's never developed into anything more than a marginal contributor. The Bulls handed him a $90 million extension despite his lack of progress, and now they're stuck with a player who doesn't seem to love the game. Williams has struggled with defensive consistency, and offensively, he's largely invisible. He spends too much time waiting in the corner for the ball and doesn't create plays. The Bulls' investment in Williams has been a failure, and it's hard to see him turning things around anytime soon. This contract has been a disaster for Chicago, and the organization will likely be paying for it for years. Finally, we have DeJounte Murray, who was once an all-star with the San Antonio Spurs, but has seen his game regress since being traded to the Atlanta Hawks. Murray was supposed to be a dynamic two-way player, but his offense has stagnated, and he's not the same defensive force he once was. After signing a $114 million extension, Murray's struggles have made the Hawks' backcourt look like a bad investment. With his inability to live up to the hype, the Hawks now have a player whose performance is far below what they expected when they made this commitment. These are the contracts that have changed the trajectory of franchises. Whether it's the injury-prone superstars or the underperforming role players, these deals have handed their teams a financial burden they're struggling to escape. From the Sixers to the Suns to the Timberwolves, the NBA is full of cautionary tales about how the wrong contract can sink a team's future. The worst part? These teams are locked in for the long haul, unable to trade away these players without taking a massive hit. Who will be the next team to make a disastrous deal? Which player's contract will haunt a franchise for years to come? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.